What can we expect from Saints quarterback Derek Carr in year two? Ladies and gentlemen, today we are here talking about the New Orleans Saints and the season coming up. We are real close to some actual football. We're real close to training camp and the offseason and OTAs and all of that. So we're really close to seeing this team actually putting it all together on the field. But up until then, we will just speculate. We will just kind of guess at what the Saints will look like moving forward. I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited for Kubiak. I'm excited for what he's going to try and do with the Saints offense. The defense will relatively stay the same. We know that. Dennis Allen is a defensive-minded coach. Last year, the number one play caller as far as efficiency rates when it comes to defense. So we know what that'll be. Offense, we have to try and kind of put the pieces together. And there are pieces out there. There's a lot of pieces out there to fit this puzzle together, which we'll talk about in this video. We are here. After further review is the backdrop. I'll be reacting to the video. Let's rock and roll.
Well, the draft in the rearview mirror, the sort of next post-draft round of free agency ahead. Mickey Loomis, Saints GM, jumped on Sirius XM NFL radio on Thursday, and actually the conversation went toward Derek Carr, and it was something interesting that Mickey said about his prospects for Carr year two in New Orleans that grabbed my attention. Give a listen to what Mickey Loomis had to say today on Sirius XM.
Before Mickey starts here, I just want to say the Saints are in a unique situation because they are one of the few situations, like especially in the NFC South, where you can kind of really figure out what they are going to look like, what they're going to try and do, what the offense will be, because we have a quarterback who's in the same team, so the same roster, same personnel, for the second year. Atlanta doesn't have that, right? Kirk Cousins is coming into a brand new team. We don't know what it will look like with him using or utilizing Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. We have no idea. Zach Robinson for Atlanta. First time being a coordinator. We have no clue what his play calling style will be like. Carolina. Bryce Young's already a young quarterback, but also now he's got a whole new coaching staff around him. What will that scheme look like with him? For the Saints, we've got Derek Carr, who has a year with Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, the roster. Then we also have Klint Kubiak, who comes from a very specific system in San Francisco. So we can take what they did last year and draw parallels from that. But we've also seen Kubiak as a coordinator. So we know what his play calling does look like. We look at what his offensive sets were then, what they were in San Francisco, and we can assume it's going to be very similar to what he's going to do in New Orleans. So we're going to talk about that in this video. I have some numbers that I've jotted down on my notepad that I'm going to share with y'all that I think are very interesting, and they'll kind of help us figure out from a statistical point of view what we'll see this season from Derek Carr and from Klint Kubiak.
The surroundings are more familiar. The coaches are more familiar. The environment that we have in our building is familiar. Look, one thing that's been understated, Derek had a pretty tough year last year physically. He got racked pretty good in the Green Bay game, and it took a number of games for him to, get feeling like himself. And look, he played through it. He's as tough as they come, but it affected him, particularly in the middle part of our season. And thought he played really well toward the end. He got comfortable with the receivers and the skill position guys that we have, and we've got to do a better job of protecting him as well. So I think the arrow is up, and we're excited about what Derek brings to the table, and I know he's excited. It's hard to take that leadership role, when you first come into a building, no matter how good you are, no matter what position you have. And so now a year in, he's going to feel more comfortable about the leadership that you need from the quarterback, and we're expecting great things.
Okay, so all of that actually sounds kind of reasonable, right?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it a lot, but Derek was really injured a lot last year, which hurt him in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a second.
All that's true.
Year two, even how good you are, it's hard to be a really great leader in year one.
Yep.
That kind of makes sense, right? Coming into the locker room, no matter how good you are. And you could also say, look, year two, second year in the facility, second year with your head coach, it's just more comfortable. All that makes sense. It does. All of that on its face makes sense. But I want to dig a little deeper there to see how realistic that is. First of all, Mickey Loomis pointing out Derek Carr's injuries from a year ago. And listen, the injuries last year were very
legitimate. I mean, busted up his shoulder, busted up his rib cage, busted up all that. Injuries are legit. Like injuries, you could even see it with the Pelicans. Like Brandon Ingram had picked up an injury towards the end of the season. He was forced to play in the playoffs, and he played like absolute garbage. Even if he's healthy, even if he's not injured, just the time off, just kind of feeling that tweak, just kind of feeling not yourself, like that all does matter. Like that all is an issue with sports. So you don't have to have a broken arm to say, hey, the injury kind of affected me. Like I wasn't feeling myself. I couldn't go through, my routines. Like I wasn't at full strength. I just wasn't myself. On top of brand new surroundings, brand new system, brand new team, brand new locker room, brand new city. Like there is a lot to that. I'm not saying that's the whole reason, but there is a lot to that. And sorry if you hear the sirens. It's just unbelievable. It really is.
Legitimate. Back on September 24th against Green Bay, that's when he suffered the AC joint sprain.
Yeah.
And a lot of us thought there was no way he was going to get back out there.
Let's say that just cost us one win. Like, let's say that alone cost us one win. That is the difference from this team being the NFC South Division Champion 10-win playoff team in Derek Carr's first year. And think about how different the outlook on the Saints would be from the media if they were a 10-win division champion team. You would be like, man, I mean, this team, if they take another step forward, they're a 12-win, 11-win team, right? That's why you can't focus on results. You can't focus on just the win-loss. There's so much that happens. So many random things happen in games, a kick here, a penalty here, a injury there. And we're talking about one baby specific moment. I'm not even saying like, well, the Green Bay this, and then this in Tampa, and then this against Atlanta, and then this. If you flip all those, we're good. This is one moment. For just one game. That's how much of a razor's edge the season was on last year. So if you want to consider everything a total failure, dumpster fire, because Derek Carr got hurt in the first half against Green Bay and we blew a 17-point lead, I think that's a very short-term way of looking at a season.
There, but he played the next week.
Yeah.
Then November the 12th, he had the concussion against the Vikings and also injured his shoulder again. A couple of weeks later, December 3rd against the Lions, he had another concussion. And
yeah, I mean, look at this. Is this Evel Knievel? Is this Johnny Knoxville in season 3 of Jackass? Like, look at these injuries. Hand finger sprain, hand thumb sprain, pedal ankle, back vertebral fracture, shoulder AC joint sprain, head cranial concussion, shoulder head cranial concussion, shoulder AC joint sprain. I mean, this is a laundry list of his career here. I mean, my God. Like, if you'd have told me, like, hey, what am I looking at here? I would have said this looks like 8 years worth of Steve-O, jumping out of planes. I mean, Derek Carr, my God, brother. I mean, I know if you think about it over the course of 8 years in the NFL, like, that's not that crazy, but just the Saints alone, like shoulder AC joint, head cranial concussion, shoulder, head cranial concussion, shoulder AC joint. Man, take it easy, brother.
Suffered the shoulder injury again. But what you heard Mickey Loomis also say there was that they were playing really good offensively near the end of the season.
Yeah.
And won 4 of their last 5 games, which is true. But I would like to point out that winning 4 of those last 5 the start of that run came 1 week after Carr's second concussion and third shoulder injury.
Yeah, he was seeing
so
out of his third
we
eye.
can point to the injuries as an excuse, but realistically, when that run began of winning 4 of your last 5, it began with the win against Carolina, which was 1 week after Carr suffered his second concussion and third shoulder injury. You wouldn't think he'd be so super sharp that day. Oh, I know what happened. You were playing Carolina, who was the worst team in the NFL. And then a week later, you played the Giants with Tommy.
I don't understand the point. We're 4 minutes in. I don't understand the point he's making right now. And honestly, a lot of last year with the way that, like, why are we talking about that? It is what it is. Carr was hurt. Carr gave us a average to above average season. Played good at the end there against bad competition, sure. And we were 1 game out from the playoffs and 10 wins in a division championship. I mean, we've explained it. We remember what happened. I don't have dementia. It's right there. I don't understand why any of that at this point is worth talking about again.
Cutlets at quarterback. Is this all sounding familiar? The one legitimate team you played was a Thursday night road game against the Rams, where you got blitzed for 3.5 quarters, and then you had a bunch of garbage yards in the final 8 minutes of that game to make it look a lot better than it really was. And then you played one, I would say maybe your best game of the year, the road win at Tampa, and then you beat Atlanta in the regular season finale. Another awful football team that ended up picking in the top 10 of the draft.
Yep.
So you won 4 of your last 5, but the one real legitimate team you faced blew your doors off, and this was while Carr was still injured. So I think it's fair to poke holes in Loomis trying to lay that at the feet of injuries, because let's be honest, what player in the NFL isn't playing hurt?
This argument, or like the basis of this argument, I don't understand why people keep doing this. Matthew is basically saying Derek Carr is not that good. To which I would say, and all we need Derek Carr to be is average, to above average at times. That's it. It doesn't, I don't care if you told me that this season here, we're going to get the exact same Derek Carr, sans injuries, because I don't want him missing, half a game here, half a game here. So if you told me the same performance, but no injuries, I'd say, let's ride. Cool. Fine. We don't need newsflash. We don't need Derek Carr to be the best quarterback in the NFL. We don't, and I'm not saying before everyone gets I hear it from both sides of the aisle. I hear Carr backers tell me that I don't give Carr enough respect because I don't put Carr in the top 5. And then I hear people who despise Derek Carr say that I'm a Carr apologist because I have Carr in the top 12 or top 15, or I had him 17th. I had him 17th. 17th on the quarterback power ranking we did going into this season. I had Carr number 17 in the 3rd tier. And I had people in those comment sections telling me that I'm a Carr apologist. It's bananas and pajamas. This is a polarizing topic, no doubt about it. It is a polarizing topic. We don't need Carr to be top 10. We don't need Carr to be top 8. We don't need Carr to throw for 4,500 yards. We don't need him to throw for 4,000 yards. We don't need him to throw for 50 touchdowns. We don't need him to throw for 40 touchdowns. We don't need him to throw for 30 touchdowns. I'm blowing y'all's mind right now. Okay? But that's not what he's going to do. I've said it in a million videos. Klint Kubiak is coming in here to fix the running game. Klint Kubiak is coming in here, and I have it written down what we're going to do. And I guarantee you Moscona doesn't talking about this in this video, because no one looks at ball, pause, as deep as I do. So here's a little fun fact for you. Don't look at me like that, Matthew. Here's a little fun fact for you. Last year, the San Francisco 49ers were 31st out of 32 teams in 3 wide receiver sets. Okay? They do not throw the ball around. They do not spread it out and toss the ball. They do. This is not what you're going to see. So if you believe that Klint Kubiak is going to come in here and Derek Carr is going to be asked to throw the ball 50 times a game and throw all these deep passes and throw for 5,000 yards and 55 touchdowns, that's just not what he does, okay? Last year, now this is the big one. This one right here, if you're drinking something, put it down because you might spit it out of your nose. Last year, Pete Carmichael, this is crazy. And by the way, these stats are from my guy, Adam Chernoff, and his podcast. If you don't know who Adam Chernoff is, but you know who Dan Orlovsky is and Swagoo is, you need to change where you're getting your NFL content, okay? He's one of the good ones. I listen to him every week. I listen to all of his content. Adam Chernoff, now working with Right Angle Sports. I'll leave links in the description. Last year, Pete Carmichael, 0 times, 0, dead last in the NFL, 0 times, 0 plays, 0%. This never happened once last year. He had 2 running backs on the field at the same time. Never once. How crazy is that? Think about that. That is absolutely insane. Never once had 2 running backs on the field at the same time. 2 running backs. I think I said running backs. If I said quarterbacks, I meant running backs. 2 running backs. 0%. 0. Klint Kubiak and the San Francisco 49ers last year had 2 running backs on the field at the same time. 36% of snaps. Second highest in the NFL. Now, you may be saying, well, what? Keep going. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Feed me. Feed me. What can I deduce from that? So we're going to go from 0% of the time to somewhere around 30% of the time. Why? Because the San Francisco 49ers offense, if you watch the games, you'll notice their offense is very condensed. The package is very condensed. They don't spread you out. It's not 4 wide receivers. It's not 3 wide receivers. It's not empty back sets. They bring it all in. And then what happens? Then you start seeing the motion, right? They bring it in, and then there's a motion here, pre-snap motion here, motion here. They're figuring out what you're doing pre-snap. Running backs are mismatching, and then that creates play action. That creates quick passes. What does that help? Anybody? In the back, that takes pressure off your offensive line. Because if you are depending on the running game, you're depending on your running backs, you're depending on play action, you're depending on short passes, you're depending on pre-snap motion, that's because you're going to have quick, fast offense, snaps and plays. So quick reads, quick throws. You're not doing what we were doing last year with this like deep play action, these deep drop backs where you're sitting back there forever. Your offensive line can't hold up and Carr gets sacked. You don't do that. Think about San Francisco. And all these stats, by the way, you're going to, if you say, well, Kyle Shanahan's calling plays, they all match up with when Klint Kubiak was OC in 2021? That's why I was saying that it's good that we have that data. We can have 2 huge data points. We have last year what that offense did, and then we have what Kubiak did when he was the play caller, and all the numbers do line up. They're not exactly equal, but they're pretty close, right? So like I said, it's 36% last year, 2 back sets. We can assume it's going to be somewhere around 30% this year, which is a huge jump from 0. All right? So Derek Carr is going to be asked to do what Brock Purdy did last year. That's it. He's going to be asked to read the pre-snap, the motions. He's going to be asked to read all of the matchups on the field. And he's going to be asked to make a very quick decision and get the ball out of his hand. He is not going to be asked to drop back, sit back there for 8 seconds, and huck it downfield. That is not going to be the case at all. And then when you think about the Saints personnel, it is perfect for that offense. Because how many times have people said our wide receiver room is weak? We only really need 2 because of the sets that we're going to be having out there. I just told you, we're going to have 3 wide receivers out there, probably in the bottom 5 times in the NFL. Last year, San Francisco was 31st. I would assume we're going to be right there again in one of the fewest teams, or one of the teams that has 3 wide receivers out there, the fewest. So we will have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and that's it, wide receiver-wise, a majority of the time. Now, running backs, interesting, because we've got Kendra Miller, we've got Alvin Kamara. Tight ends, we've got Juwan Johnson. What else do we have? Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill could be one of the 2 running backs. He could be a tight end. He could be one of the wide receivers. Klint Kubiak is going to move all of these pieces around, which is exactly what we were asking for last season. This isn't about Carr. It's not. It's not about Derek Carr. Atlanta, it's about Kirk Cousins. Zach Robinson is going to have Kirk Cousins slinging the ball around, I would assume. I'm going to guess. He's going to have 3 wide receiver sets. Think about the Rams. Think about what they do. They sling it around. They have 3 wide receiver sets. They will spread you out. The Niners don't do that. Brock Purdy doesn't do that. Brock Purdy is that efficient game manager. That's what Derek Carr is going to be. This conversation about Carr it's just like quarterback does quarterback things. Quarterback equals throw the football downfield. Me no watch football. It's like a caveman mentality. We know what San Francisco does. We know what Klint Kubiak wants to do. And we know what Pete Carmichael didn't do last year. So if you told me that Derek Carr is going to have 3,800 yards and 28 touchdowns and 10 picks like he did last year, I'd say, okay, we can win with that. That's pretty much what he's going to be expected to do. That's it. The onus, word of the day, the onus is going to be much more on Alvin Kamara. Much more on Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Taysom Hill. It's going to be way less on Derek Carr.
At times. Now, the other thing Loomis said there was about year 2. No matter how good of a player you are, when you come into an organization, it's hard to be a leader. Year 2, there's more of a leadership there, more comfort with the organization as a whole. And all of that sounds plausible, right? Your second day on your new job is going to be more comfortable than your first. Your second day at your new school is going to be more comfortable than your first. Your second year is going to be more comfortable than your first. All of that is true. It just experience begets confidence in a lot of things generally. Those are good life principles. But I did want to sort of look up, as a test case, notable free agent quarterbacks that left a place where they had been established for a long time, went to a new spot, and look at how they did in their first and second years.
Okay.
The most recent example of this is Matthew Stafford. Of course, Matthew Stafford was the number 1 overall pick of the Lions, where, boy, he threw for a lot of yards and had a lot of success there individually. They just didn't have great team success. We know what happened. They did a pick and quarterback swap, which sent Matthew Stafford to the Rams.
I'm getting pissed off already. Guys, this has nothing to do. Here, I don't understand this. I don't understand, why couldn't whoever is doing this segment, whoever's drawing this segment up, why couldn't they just take last year with what Pete Carmichael did, and then this year with what Klint Kubiak, Jesus, I almost just swallowed my tongue. I'm getting fired up. Why couldn't they just take this year with what Klint Kubiak is going to do, and that's it? Why are we talking about Matthew Stafford? You don't think that Matthew Stafford leaving Detroit and going to the Rams, that team is a little bit of a different landing spot than what Derek Carr walked into last year? You don't think it's a little different? I wonder what the difference is. Oh, I know what the difference is. That was a Super Bowl team. That team was coached by Sean McVay. That team had Aaron Donald. That team had Cooper Kupp. That team won the Super Bowl. That's going to be a pretty successful case study. Derek Carr, his first year is certainly not going to live up to that. And in the title, he hasn't mentioned Brett Favre yet, but in the title, he mentions Brett Favre. I don't think it's fair to compare Derek Carr to Brett Favre. Brett Favre was one of the best quarterbacks to ever live. He's a top 10 quarterback to ever live. Brett Favre it's like saying, Tom Brady did pretty well in his first season with Tampa. Tom Brady could have went to any team. Tom Brady could have gone to any team. They're going to be good. It's Tom Brady. He's the greatest quarterback to ever live. Well, I did a little research here. Peyton Manning had a pretty good first season when he left Indy and went to Denver. Why do you think that Derek Carr's first season wasn't that good? I don't know. Maybe because Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. Maybe because the Denver Broncos were a Super Bowl caliber team. Maybe because Pete Carmichael wasn't crawling around underneath the bleachers in Denver or Tampa Bay or what? I mean, there is absolutely zero correlation between any of the first year things that he's talking about and Derek Carr's first year in New Orleans. Absolutely zero.
Year 1 in Los Angeles, they won the Super Bowl with the Rams. His second year in LA as a Ram, he played in just 9 games. He was injured, and the Rams missed the playoffs 1 year after winning the Super Bowl. So that's an instance where year 1, dude won the Super Bowl. Okay? Year 2, got injured, played only 9 games, they missed the playoffs.
But if we assume that injuries are random, which they are, then what is the difference between year 1 and year 2? Did Stafford become a worse leader? Or did the team get worse? Did he get injured? They missed playoffs? You see what I'm saying? That you take a really simple, shallow thing he went there and they won the Super Bowl. Why can't Carr do that? It's well, then second year was awful. You're just going to throw that one out? What if you flip-flopped them? Because injuries are random. So Stafford could have went there, got hurt, and they could have won 9 games and missed the playoffs. Sounds just like Carr. So what does that mean? What? I don't understand what he's trying to say with saying that Stafford went there and won the Super Bowl, or saying that Brady went there and won the Super Bowl, or Peyton Manning, or whatever. I mean, it's like, I don't understand the correlation to Carr.
Kirk Cousins, drafted in the 4th round by Washington. Surprised a lot of people there in D.C., becoming a consistent starter, getting them into the playoffs, but Washington never really wanted to commit to him. So ultimately, he ends up signing
they tagged him like 3 straight
Minnesota.
times. Yeah.
First year in Minnesota, the Vikings went 10-6, made the playoffs.
Okay.
His second year in Minnesota, dramatic step back as they went just 7-9. Again, Cousins, better year 1 in Minnesota than he was in year 2, same as Stafford. And then another Vikings quarterback. How about Brett Favre? We all remember this one. Now, Brett Favre did have that ill-fated season with the Jets, but...
So we're just going to throw that one out. Doesn't fit the narrative, so we'll just throw the Jets season out. Yeah, all right.
Brett Favre, of course, would have been a Hall of Fame quarterback if his career ended at the end of his time in Green Bay. We all know that. Yeah. One of the greatest we ever saw do it. Super Bowl champion MVP. His first season in Minnesota...
I actually don't think that's right. Someone double-check me. I'm pretty sure when Green Bay won the Super Bowl...
His first season...
I'm pretty sure when... Let me see.
If his career ended at the end of his time in Green Bay. We all know that. One of the greatest we ever saw do it. Super Bowl champion MVP.
Okay, Super Bowl champion and MVP. I thought he was saying Super Bowl MVP, because I'm pretty sure when they won the Super Bowl... Was it Desmond Howard won the MVP? Whoever returned the kick... Might have been Desmond Howard. I'm pretty sure won the Super Bowl MVP. But he's saying Super Bowl champion and MVP, which is correct.
His first season in Minnesota, he threw for 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. And the Vikings went to the NFC Championship game where, of course, they lost in overtime to the Saints.
Yeah.
Favre's second season in Minnesota, he threw for 2,500 yards, 11 touchdowns, 19 interceptions.
Yeah, horrible.
He had 8 more interceptions than touchdowns, and the Vikings went 6-10. Favre, dramatically better year 1 than year 2. My point is not just to poo-poo what Mickey Loomis is saying. It's to actually add context to say, yes, in theory, you would think year 2, you're more comfortable than you are year 1. You're more vocal leader than you are year 1. All things are more familiar. Yes. Oh, Derek Carr was also injured a lot year 1. Okay. But the success you laud happened after he suffered his 3rd injury of the same body part, his throwing shoulder. And I got a list of guys who were successful quarterbacks with the organization that drafted him for a long time, and their first season with their new team was dramatically better than their second.
Yeah, so what? I mean, I still have yet to see the point.
So if that history holds, Derek Carr's year in 2023 likely better than whatever he do in 2024. He's got some history he's fighting against. Now, I'm optimistic because I think Klint Kubiak's a better offensive coordinator.
What? What? So let me get this straight. Okay. So what I'm hearing is that because Brett Favre, because his first year in Minnesota was better than his second year, and because Kirk Cousins' first year in Minnesota was better than his second year, because of that Derek Carr will have a worse second year than his first year. Because somehow what happened in Minnesota with Brett Favre somehow, I mean, that had to be, I mean, we're talking about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So what happened 13 years ago in Minnesota, and however many years ago in Washington and Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, because of that, that's going to somehow affect Derek Carr's second year. Or maybe all those are completely not correlated, have no bearing on each other. There's a million different variables of why 1 year could be better than the second year, why the third year could be better than the second year, why the first couple of years could be bad and then the third year is good. Maybe all of it lives inside of their own little vacuums and their own variables, and they have absolutely no bearing at all on what's going to happen with the Saints and Derek Carr in the second season. Maybe instead of digging up what happened to Brett Favre, maybe instead of that, we could look at what the Saints are actually doing, what the Saints have done bringing in Klint Kubiak. What sets is he going to run? We're going to have 30% more two-back sets. We're going to have way more pre-snap motion. What is he actually asking Carr to do? Drop back less, be quicker, hold the ball less. Maybe that'll actually impact him taking sacks from our weak O-line. Maybe all of that is what actually is important instead of some fake-ass historical reference to Brett Favre and Kirk Cousins from Washington. Why don't we just throw Y.A. Tittle in there? I mean, this is absolutely insane. This is one of the craziest arguments I've ever heard made. Shocking. Absolutely shocking.
I hope they get some of the offensive line stuff figured out. You got some of the cancerous tissue out of your locker room, i.e. Michael Thomas. Let's see if maybe they can build upon it. But it feels like what Mickey Loomis was saying there was a lot of theory, which in theory sounds good, but in actuality has been disproven over the past 2 decades in the NFL.
Well, besides all the other cases that were not referenced, besides when you could talk about Brett Favre's first year with the Jets, besides when you could talk about Deshaun Watson's first year in Cleveland, besides that, if you take all of the cases of someone going somewhere for the first year and not having success, if you take all those cases and you throw them all out, like Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis, there's a million different cases we could use, but we're not going to. You could take any of those and throw those out, right? But if we only pick the ones that fit this narrative, yeah, okay, sure. Sure, there's some context or whatever. But, I'd be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, with that. I'd be very careful with that line of thinking. And there's no reference to Carson Wentz's first year in Washington. We'll just throw that one out. And these are just off the top of my head. Of all, Brock Osweiler's first year in Houston. I don't think there's historical context that every quarterback's first year with the team is better than the second. I would say it's pretty specific to that one scenario. I would say that data could probably be thrown out. I would say in a court of law that you'd probably toss that data right on out. It's a good thing I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have way more talk about sets. We're going to have way more talk about what's actually going to happen on the field. We're going to have way more talk about the actual offense and the actual scheme and the actual strategy and the actual players. And we're going to talk more about the NFL season actually here in 2024, not in 2012. That's my plan. So if that sounds good to you and you like that plan, you might want to stick around and hit the subscribe button and watch this channel right here. Because I got news for you. We're the fastest growing channel, not just in New Orleans media, not just in sports media, just in general. We're flying. We're exploding. 10K subscribers before week 1. Why not? Who says no? Every day we're pumping out content. We're pumping out videos. I don't miss. I don't stop. I'll tell you that right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video.